But what I am going to do is introduce you to a new movie and a new character that I really hope that all of you are going to get behind. And so let's start with the opening credits. We see that classic image of Earth from the stars, looking out down at the Earth at nighttime, and we see those amazing lights covering the planet. And it's those beacons of hope where the fight against climate change is going to be won or lost. And this movie is a classic 3-part narrative, one about an underdog who might just save the world as we know it. And she is those lights. Cue the dramatic music and the opening credits, and we start our opening scene of our movie, where we are introduced to our character. She's flawed, yet she's relatable, and she's an anti-hero. She is called Cities. Our protagonist, Cities, takes up just 3% of the Earth's land surface, but generates 70% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. She's been built and powered as the villain of climate change. She's concentrating power, generating emissions. On top of all of that, there are dark surfaces in the trap heat and the built environment that make flooding of our cities too easy. So humans and nature swelter and flood as a result of this. So that sounds terrible, but think of this as the anti-hero's origin story. The source of the problem becoming the source of the solution. And just as every anti-hero learns to harness their questionable traits and dark beginnings, Cities is turning these beginnings or these challenges that she's started with into climate resilient solutions. So without flaws, there is no growth. There is no change, which is why we're drawn to the anti-hero story in so many movies. And we view Cities in this context. Cities has the power to transform this tiny fraction of the Earth's surface and address many of our challenges. And that's not just leverage, that's superhuman strength. So in this art house cinema release, where our flawed central character, exists, she understands that she can do better, and she really is trying. Like all good anti-heroes, she's taking risks. She's turning her universe into climate laboratories. She's trialing new research, new methods to understand systems and networks to take the cities of the past to the cities of the future. And she's looking to fellow underdogs, like cities like Melbourne, as an underdog, where they have built a whole wind farm to become a renewable energy powered city. And they're turning the city into a giant battery with microgrid and a giant sponge with porous paving and their resilient gardens and the future forests that they've built. They're adapting their built concrete form one block at a time. Right here in Bendigo, I've learned a lot. This city is proving that you don't need to be a mega city to be in the Justice League of urban anti-heroes. In 2022, lots of 20s there, but in 2022, 20 organisations, community groups, local government, businesses, state government, all banded together to create, design and finance the Greater Bendigo Climate Collaboration. And they've been helping Bendigo get to 100% renewable by 2036, putting solar on everything from community buildings to the iconic Bendigo Art Gallery, and transforming the parks and gardens to be much more climate resilient. And our central character, Cities, she also looks to Singapore, where architects have designed their buildings to generate half the emissions as normal, making them far more energy efficient, cutting energy emissions in half. And finally, she looks to Paris, creating 15-minute neighbourhoods, not just reducing the carbon-intense transport emissions, but she's also creating community health and wellbeing impacts. So Cities realises that there's strength in numbers. There's strength in understanding complexity, strength in understanding that they work together and they can achieve far more resilient future buildings so that our future generations have a much more positive outlook. Over 13,000 small and large cities have banded together. They've joined forces through the Global Covenant of Mayors. And this is the largest global alliance of anti-heroes of its kind. Together, these cities, they are transforming their cities all around the world, and they're embracing this anti-hero journey. The power is in the collective sum. Cities realizes this through the movie, and in a very dramatic movie moment and dramatic music again, she realizes that the commitments of these 13,000 cities, if you added up all of their commitments, that represents 4.2 gigatons of greenhouse gas emissions reduced annually by 2050, or about 1 billion cars removed from our roads. So this is the redemption story, the redemption arc of our story, where our cities throughout the movie, seen as straddling between a villain and a hero, has now reimagined itself and is being recognized for it. So for the first time ever, the world's largest group of scientists, through the IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they're writing a special report all about the opportunity and potential of cities through a special report on climate change and cities. No surprises there on the title of that report. But this special report, they recognise that urban settlements, small and large, have this huge potential to change. They represent both the greatest challenge, but also the greatest opportunity. And of course, national governments have a lot to do. They're significant levers, much more power, and of course we need them to make a difference. But it's cities that actually need to contribute to this and need to be recognised for the contribution that they're making. And importantly, it's the citizens within these cities that they call them home, and they are making the difference with the city leaders. And that's what really excites me as a publicist of this movie, is that actually all moviegoers, all citizens get to rewrite this story, make a sequel, I guess. It's not just scientists and politicians that get to write this story, it's every one of us. We get to support local businesses, we get to champion local governments that are actually trying to make a difference. And we all have the power to make a change and make a difference. We don't need a cape or superhero powers, we just need to support those local leaders that are trying to bring a change within their communities. And so in the closing credits of this movie, and we're reminded of the lights that we saw from space twinkling, and sure, they are beautiful and brilliant, but they did kind of get us into the climate crisis that we're in at the moment, but they are beacons of hope if we can support them. These complicated and flawed, dazzling anti-heroes, they might have got us into the climate crisis, but transformed by everyday people and everyday examples all around the world, we know that we can make a change. And while national leaders debate or ditch the targets, we know that local leaders are stepping up on stages all around the world, and we need to get behind them and recognise that, as the future needs more heroes, we need to get behind the local heroes. And at the end of the movie, as we look to the sequel, we see our character looking out at the window at a green and healthy and a safe future for all. Yeah, thank you.